This video is made possible by Second Call Defense. Second Call Defense provides immediate, upfront legal protection for a member who is forced to use any legal weapon for self-defense. So protect yourself today with Second Call Defense. I did. You'll find the link in the description. Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I'm very grateful for everything you do. Please don't stop. If you get a chance and you would like to support GunGuyTV, you can do that at GunGuyTV Crew. Just by going to GunGuyTVCrew.com, or you'll find a link in the description. There you will find a pretty much every day of the week, with some exceptions, I'm posting exclusive content you can't find anywhere else. Also, check out these other locations for the videos, because once in a while YouTube deletes something, and that way if you're on Rumble or whatever, you'll always find it there. And you can also check out the GunGuyTV audio podcast. You'll find it on your favorite podcast player. Okay. If you have a concealed carry permit in California, as I do, or you're planning on getting one, which you should be doing if you're in California, the crazy people up in Sacramento don't want you to do that, so they're trying to make it as hard as possible. And so as a result, they have a bunch of new restrictions on your CCW, which is about to become, every last one of them, about to become law. Probably not for very long, but you need to be aware of them anyway. And so Rick Travis from CRPA is about to join me and tell us all about it. Let's go talk to Rick. Rick Travis, thank you very much for joining me again. It's an interesting day in
yes, it is.
in the neighborhood. Quite the list that the California government has given us of places where you cannot carry a firearm concealed, even if you have a license.
Yeah, even if you have a license.
So, okay, lay it on us. Give us the list. Go ahead. You got it?
Well, just so everybody knows where this came from, it was Senate Bill 918. And this is a classic example, Joel. I know you and I have talked a lot, and you've talked with Sam Paredes about this too. And by the way, Sam and I talk about this all the time. But this bill started out back in April as nothing more than a small gross fee adjustment bill. And it adjusted all right, quite a bit to become initially right after the Bruin decision, which was a Supreme Court decision that clarified that our Second Amendment right actually allows, despite what a lot of governments throughout the United States said, the right to carry a firearm concealed or open, but in that case, especially concealed, in order to defend yourself and those that you love. In that decision, the justices, writing the opinion, the majority opinion, said, and by the way, we know some people are going to try to be kind of like anti what we're saying. And so they might try to create special places and might want to say to people like, you can't go here with your CCW, go there. In fact, one of the justices, I don't remember off the top of my head, went so far as to say, you can't take the island of Manhattan and make it a gun-free zone. You can't do that. And that seems to be what our 3-year-old mentality government leaders, like the Attorney General Bonta and the Governor of California, Newsom, are like a 3-year-old that when their mom and dad says, you shall not do this, that's the exact thing that they want to go do. So this bill has went through for past couple of weeks, through a myriad of little tiny changes here and there. And there was a lot of stuff going on during the month of July when they're supposed to be in recess. They weren't really in recess. They just weren't meeting publicly, but there were lots of meetings and we would hear about them. And one of those was the State Sheriff's Association, who got together with them and the DOJ and said, you can't do that. You shouldn't do this. This is why this is problematic. And it seems everything they were told they shouldn't, couldn't, and would be problematic, they doubled down on. And so late last night, after hearing that the bill was passed without us being able to testify on it, that the bill would be passed to the 2 floors, we were told there would be some amendments, which we figured a couple dozen, because that's about what some is in the legislature. We got hit with 185 amendments. Honestly, Sam and I are both thinking this is a record number of amendments for a bill, especially this late in the season. They piled on every anti-member of both sides of the legislature to become co-authors, which is a clear message to any other Democrat in the building don't even think about not voting for this. They power played this as much, and then they put an urgency clause on it, Joel, which means once it goes through both houses and is voted with concurrence, that means that they both agree that it goes to the governor's desk, the governor is going to have, mark my words, a table right outside the room where it happens, and he's going to sign it. And before his pen even hits the desk, it's law. So there's no time delay. There's no, oh, this will happen January 1st or at some later date beyond that. It will happen the moment he signs it. And so, we can go through the list of places that with your CCW of where one, despite common sense, can't carry. I will say I've already been in the paper a couple times today. I'm a history buff.
First of all, I would say that you've given them too much credit by saying that it's a 3-year-old response. To me, it's more of a terrible 2-year-old response. So I think you're giving them way too much credit there. However, I do see one positive in this bill, if you want to know what it is. And once you get through the whole list of all the places we can't carry, the one positive is, we'll all us CCW holders, there'll be more of us. And we'll all be one happy family in the 30 square feet that we're allowed to carry in the state of California. So anyway, all right, go through the list. Go ahead, I'm ready.
Well, I always start off with something too. I'm a bit of a history buff, as you know, and there are some things that you read about in history and you think, God, I hope I never see that again. I mean, you're literally praying you never see it again. And one of them was when you really get down into the mid-1930s Europe, especially Germany. You see groups of people that have to put things on their businesses. And it wasn't just the Jews, it was a lot of different groups that the government didn't like. And so you have to have a special sign that says you are part of this group. And the idea of that was clearly to discourage people to not do business with them so you could bankrupt them. And to encourage some of those people to denounce their belief system, their nationality, their way of life. I thought we would never see that in this country. And yet, at the heart of Senate Bill 918 is in churches, which you and I both have discussed previously, synagogues, mosques have been targets of opportunity for evildoers. And they look to them because they assume that they're gun-free zones. And we saw that in the case of the church here recently in Orange County, where the doctor was killed trying to defend his fellow congregants. So their solution in Sacramento wasn't like, well, let's go ahead and encourage people that have CCWs to attend worship services and be there. So there's something there as a step between that and 25, 30 minutes or longer when law enforcement can show up. Nope. Now a church, synagogue, mosque has one of two choices. Either place a sign that says, we're in defiance of the government. Yeah, go ahead and carry, Joel. You can carry here. Or comply with the government, and therefore anybody that wants to do harm to that facility will know if there's not that 4x6 sign at every door, that it's a gun-free zone, and it's a target of opportunity. Of course, they didn't stop just with that. They did it with private business. They're telling every private business in the state, you either have to buy the sign that conforms to the government's wishes, or it's absolutely against the law for either one of us or anybody else with CCW to enter that premises. I mean, this is just where it starts, the myriad of issues that this thing goes through. All
right, you're killing everybody. Give them the list. They're all dying here waiting for the list. Go ahead.
So you cannot carry on the following: any state or local public building, state capitol ground, any legislative office, governor's mansion grounds, any property owned by the governor, which would include his winery. The entire property of any location under the control of any officer of the state government. The entire property, including parking lots of all airports, harbors, and port facilities. And that used to only be sterile areas, but now, evidently, if you go to a harbor, because it doesn't declare, so you go to your local friends, to go fishing, that's a harbor. On any street or sidewalk adjacent to any school grounds, the entire parking property, including parking lot of any preschool or childcare facility, the same of any court, of any detention center, of any facility where any medical care is provided. And that becomes really loose, Joel, because the entire property, including the parking lot. So Back when I was involved with emergency medicine, there were times that we would go out and do as a public service, park a couple of rigs in a parking lot to provide vaccines or things for people in low income areas. Well, technically, that'd be medical care. Technically, if you happen to be going to do something in that parking lot, you'd be in trouble. Any public transportation, and here's the key, that gets any funding from the government. Therefore, as an example I'll show later on, a tow truck that receives government funds to be able to clear off, vehicles like, law enforcement officers will have towed and stuff. Yep, that would be amongst them. Entire property, including parking lots of any business or vendor that sells alcohol or consumption on the site, regardless of it's their primary business. So that include a restaurant. If the restaurant happens to serve beer or something, yep, that's off limits. At any permitted public gathering on any street or sidewalk within 1,000 feet of any permitted public gathering. So you want to go to a cultural festival, those are permitted. You want to go to somebody's wedding that had over X number of people, that's permitted. Like any of those things. Any park, athletic area, or athletic center, or playground, or youth center, and any street or sidewalk adjacent to any of those things. All property under the control of the Department of Fish and Wildlife or Department of Parks and Recreation, except those designated for hunting or shooting exclusively. All property, including parking lots of any public or private college, gambling and gaming facilities, or anywhere where lottery tickets other than the California State Lottery can be bought. Stadiums, arenas, libraries, amusement parks, zoos, museums, any place of worship, unless they post one of those signs I talked about, any parking lot adjacent to any place of worship, whether or not it's owned or used by that place of worship. Any property or parking lot of any financial institution, law enforcement agency, polling place, or any private businesses open to the public, unless the sign allows it. And those are 25 of the highlights of where you no longer can carry, otherwise you're breaking the law and will lose your license and the right to carry for a minimum of 10 years.
Well, and here's the thing. They've made it's impossible to comply with unless you just don't leave the gun at home. If you think about, a lot of the things that you mentioned, but even harbor, for example. In California, we have two areas that are public areas on the harbor. There's Harbor Island. Let's see. There's the San Diego Harbor, where you would maybe park down there just to, hang out. There's Shelter Island, which is part of the harbor, which means you couldn't go to any of those. You couldn't even be on the island. You couldn't be on Harbor Island. You couldn't be on, because that's part of a harbor. So there's a lot of gray areas there. Medical care, not just a thing you mentioned, but also if your doctor's office happens to be in a strip mall, that's that building, the parking lot, the sidewalks adjacent to that. The same thing with a restaurant. If the restaurant happens to be in a strip mall and the restaurant serves beer or wine, you can't even be in the parking lot. Even if let's say there's Turner's Gun Shop or some gun shop in the same strip mall, and you want to go in the gun shop, and the gun shop says, yeah, you can carry here. Well, you can't get there because you can't be in the parking lot. So this kind of stuff, same thing with your bank, your church, your whatever. Even if the church says, yes, you can carry in the church, you can't get to it because you can't go through the parking lot. And even, in a couple of the malls here in town, the local PD has a little kiosk in the mall. So even if the mall puts up a sign that says you can carry here, you can't do it because you can't be in the parking lot, you can't be in the mall because the PD has an office there, and that's the office of the police department. So this is completely impossible to comply with.
But that's not all.
Oh, there's more. But wait, there's more. Okay, what's the more? Go ahead.
So now it's minimum 6 diesel requirements for applicants, and I'll also say renewals. 16-hour CCW course, 8 hours for renewals statewide. Course will now have a written exam approved by the government. 3 personal references, at least one must be a cohabitant if you have one, and at least one must be a parent or current or former romantic partner. The agency is required to interview all 3 personal references, and the agency is required to review publicly available information about you, including public social media posts, etc. Renewal fees can be high as new permit fees. License amendments are doubled, and issuing agencies may require a psych eval, and you'll have to pay up to $200 for that. And wait, we're not done.
Oh no!
There's even more.
There's more. All right, if you're seriously pissed off about this already, and you're watching, take a breath, because what they've done is just picked a fight. That's what they did. So anyway, go ahead.
So your new requirements are: 1, you cannot have made a threat or commit an act of violence to yourself or others in the last 10 years. And the threat is that's not defined. Yeah. Okay. 2nd, you've never been the subject of a restraining order of any type. So, for example, we happen to be working with some people who put up, the Ring cameras, Joel, for security, and the neighbor didn't like the fact that the Ring camera caught part of her yard when it was checking their side yard. She got a restraining order. That restraining order immediately triggered that family lost all their firearms because of the restraining order, and it's currently being litigated. This would mean, you can't go get your CCW. You can never be convicted of any offense that resulted in a loss of firearm rights for any amount of time. You can never have been convicted of reckless use or display of a firearm, okay? You haven't been in jail or been on probation for any drug or alcohol offense in the last 5 years. Currently not abusing drugs or alcohol. You never had a firearm lost or stolen due to improper storage or transportation. Ever.
Never. Like 40 years ago, when there was no law against having it in your house, but they can go back years and say, well, that was improper.
Right. Psych tests have not shown you're likely to be a danger to yourself or others.
Okay.
And you've never been convicted of contempt of court, which is, in my opinion, a bit ironic, given the people that are putting this out.
The whole sticking thing is contempt of court.
Right.
I shouldn't be laughing about this, and I'm probably making people mad because I'm trying to see some humor in it. There isn't much, but what there is, you gotta, if otherwise your blood boils and this is going to get your blood pressure up too high. So you got to laugh about it a little bit. All right, is there more?
No, that will suffice.
Okay, a couple of things I find interesting. Would you read the references, what the references are again? I think that's interesting. The requirement for references for your CCW, what was that?
Oh, you have to have 3 references.
Okay, let's slow down. You got to have 3 references, and what are they again?
One has to be let me double check so I say this right. Personal references. One must be a cohabitant. Okay. At least one must be a parent or a current or former romantic partner. Okay.
I'm in my 60s. If my parents are dead, then that doesn't work. If my wife and I live in a house by ourselves, she cannot probably be 2 references, and one of them has to be a cohabitant and one of them has to be a partner, spouse, whatever. So what do? You put an ad out and get somebody to move in briefly so they can be a reference. I listened to that and I was like, wait, what? All right, well, and then there's the First Amendment issue of they're going to go through your social media, and if they find things that they don't particularly agree with or don't like, they're going to be able to deny you.
And I would like to stop on that one for a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I've shared a couple times, my son's a law enforcement officer, and I remember when he was going through the background in the academy, and he has a friend that's been a family friend who has a smart mouth, bit sarcastic, Cajun from Louisiana. And so this young individual, who at the time was like 18, would every once in a while post something in my son's Facebook page, trying to get him riled up. That was an issue. My son had to unfriend him during the background check, do a whole bunch of things. Otherwise, the department couldn't take him. So if you think about the subjectiveness of this, people like you, myself, have people post all sorts of stuff when they don't like something we say or do, or we didn't do something they think we should have said, or that had nothing to do with my personal opinions. But if it's on my social media,
yeah, sure. I mean, I've said
what's to stop the other side from just randomly posting stuff on people?
Absolutely
Right.
nothing. The minute Gruesome Newsom signs this, it's going to become law, you said.
Correct.
All right. How long is it going to... First of all, is CRPA standing ready to take this to court?
That's all our attorneys have been doing since late last night when I
Okay, all right. Because we need to be ready to pounce the minute he signs.
Right.
And then prognosticate for me to the degree that you can. No, I will not hold you to it. And if you're watching this, please don't hold him to it, because nobody knows the future except the God. How long will it take to shut this thing down? I assume you're going to be asking for some sort of preliminary injunction against it.
Yeah, we'll ask for that. It'll be emergency. It will depend on the judge and the court calendar of how fast that happens. There's been a couple of things recently we thought would happen very quickly, and the courts have held off for a couple of weeks. So, I mean, the hope and prayer would be that it'd be at the, soon as possible, but it could be a couple of weeks before we got that preliminary injunction.
Okay, I'm going to say something here that probably that I think really needs to be said. Others have said it, and I'm going to say it. There's been a lot of negative stuff that's happened in the last couple of weeks. This is piling on. Okay, we've had a former president, whether you like him or not. I personally like him, but that's just my opinion. If you're watching this, you're certainly welcome to disagree with me, and you can do that in the comments if you want. It's okay. That's what the First Amendment is all about, and we can agree to disagree. But I don't think that a former president should have their home raided as that one was. And a lot of people are very, very angry about that. And I totally understand. And then this has just happened, and people are going to be very, very angry about that. We have a process in this country, and we are poised through that process to win. Now is not the time to do stupid stuff like the guy who walked into an FBI place somewhere, I forget, on the news, because he had a desire to hurt FBI agents. So let's just be honest, responsible gun owners, and let's take the steps we need to take, and let's have a little patience, because the attorneys at Michelle and Associates through CRPA are burning the midnight oil to fight this thing. Process takes a little time. Okay, so let's not be violent. I got to tell you, the people who want to destroy this country and want to disarm you are hoping that somebody will be violent and do something stupid. And the minute that happens, they're going to pounce on that, and that's going to do a lot of harm, not only to the person they're violent against, but also just for the freedom of Americans and saving our country. So I just want to ask you, beg you, please. You can get mad. You can yell at the ceiling. You can yell at the inside of the car as you're driving down the road. You can go outside and get a heavy bag and punch it a few times, or whatever you want to do. But let that be the limit of you letting off steam, okay? And then let's just stay in the fight through the courts, through the ballot box. Anyway, I think that needed to be said, so I said it. So what do we do now that I've just said all that? How do we fight this?
Well, there are several things. I mean, anybody that's ever watched me on this program or any other program knows I've been repetitively frustrated, because it seems like our community is like, if it doesn't directly impact them, they don't get too involved. And I would make the argument, and I will make it right now, that we are at a point where the other side is going for broke. They see what's coming with the current Supreme Court decisions. They're seeing what's coming in these midterm elections this November, and they are looking to create an environment that I think goes back to what you just said, where one or more people makes a egregious mistake that gives them even more optics to do even more heinous things than they've already done. I think right now the best thing for people to do is come together. I was with a wonderfully angry very upset, very displeased group. It took about an hour for them to settle down where we could talk, because they're just passionate people that after Assembly Bill 2571 was signed into law and it impacted their kids, got highly motivated. But those people are coming together and they're networking now with other people in the community to push back. There's a series of things that Sam and I and a couple others are putting together for January, and people go, immediately when I say that, they say, Joel, they'll go, Rick, why are you waiting until January? Because after the 25th, we're done for this year. Part of me says, thankfully, we're done for this year, because it gives us a couple of months to regroup, get together with some of the new people coming into the legislature, some of the people that are staying with us, and working out some different bills and some different things, regulatory policies that we can put forward to try to take back ground as cases are being adjudicated in the court. It's a two-pronged process, but we didn't get here overnight.
Okay, so let me make sure, before you go any further, I want to make sure that that's clear. When you say we're done on the 25th, you're talking about the legislative calendar. You're not
Right.
talking about court cases.
No.
The attorneys are still going to be burning the midnight oil, working their butt off. You're talking about as far as lobbying is concerned and dealing with whatever's coming out new from the legislature, correct?
I'm saying what's coming from the legislature will be done,
Okay.
but I'm saying us lobbyists are not done. We too are burning the midnight oil in concert with the litigation teams, because what we're starting is the legislation to push back for next year that will debut in January. And so that is what both sides are working on. So the pivot point that can be deceptive is towards the end of this month, people will look and go, well, now what? You just off gallivanting? No. We're now behind closed doors, meeting, coming up with different ideas to run different bills, different pieces of regulatory policy, trying to get different groups of people together, unseat different people from offices. There's going to be some special elections next year as well. All of that is happening around the clock.
Yeah.
And
I do want to assure you, if you're watching this too, look, Rick and I are personal friends. There is nothing we would rather be doing than grabbing Pete, heading off to my property in the White Mountains of Arizona and knocking elk down, okay, or deer, or antelope, or whatever, okay. I can't seem to get there, and neither can they, because this is just occupying, everything. But it's super important. So please understand that just because the legislature goes on vacation doesn't mean all the folks fighting for your rights are going on vacation. We'd love to go on vacation.
I have several good friends that I had worked for 3 years to take on their first deer hunt. Mm-hmm. And I sadly had to tell them 2 days ago, after all the work, training some of them to get their hunter ed, I can't go because I'll be fighting stuff up in Sacramento.
Right. So hang in there. If you're watching, hang in there. Nobody's sleeping. Nobody's asleep leaning on their shovel. Nobody's going on vacation on the 25th. Everybody's still working their butts off to make sure that you're okay and that this is going to be fought. I'm going to give some advice here that is not legal advice because it can't be. I'm not a lawyer. But here's my suggestion. If you have a concealed carry permit or you get one and you choose to carry while this is all working its way out, it's going to be extraordinary. First of all, I would advise you do not intentionally violate any of these things. I also recognize it's going to be extraordinarily easy to accidentally violate them. And so since that's the case, the word concealed means a great deal. Okay, so if you're going to carry, make sure that your firearm is very concealed. It's concealed so that it's not printing. Nobody's going to, get a hint that you have it. And then nobody's going to see it unless you have to defend yourself with it. And then if you accidentally blunder into a place, a sidewalk or someplace outside of something that you're not supposed to be in and you have no idea, then you're not going to end up in jail and losing your firearms rights. So be very, very careful carrying for a while until we can get this terrible law knocked down. When do you expect the governor to sign this thing?
It could be as early as next week, but it will definitely be before the end of the month. Okay, so personally, if you were asking me personally, not as CRPA, I don't see us getting much past Thursday, a week from yesterday. Okay, so that means if you're carrying already, I mean, look, today I went into 2 credit unions to pick up
money from one and pay off a loan in the other. And of course, where am I? I'm in the parking lot of the banking institution. I'm in the banking institute. Currently, that's fine. But even if I went to the pet store next to the credit union, even if they had a sign that says it's okay, I'm in the parking lot. So this is what I'm saying. It's just, it's impossible to comply with. Just practice starting today. If you're carrying today, practice starting today, making sure your firearm is very well concealed. Carry a pocket pistol in your pocket or something so that it's concealed, nobody knows you have it. And then if you're accidentally in the wrong spot, which you're probably going to be, then you don't end up losing your firearms rights over the stupid law while it's being fought. Because it's liable to take, Murphy's Law, as much as I'd like to get it killed within a day, it may take a month or two. It might take a week or two. But in that period of time, you can find yourself arrested. And hopefully, police officers will not spend any time trying to enforce it. But I don't know. What are your thoughts with that regard? Do you think that police are actually going to work to enforce this?
I don't know. I see government in a lot of ways. And when I think of 86,000 armed IRS agents,
yeah, that's going to go well.
Yeah.
No, right? I guess it is kind of a crapshoot. It depends on the cop, probably.
Right.
It depends on the cop. So just be careful out there, okay? If you're out there and you're carrying. And I've been telling my students that as well. Any last things we should know before we go?
We're hoping
Absolutely.
that nothing happens, but there are a couple of bills that are in a position that could be further gut and amends. And right now, with the rampage that they're on, I don't put anything past them. Within this bill, there were a couple other things on the train side I didn't bring up because it had more to do with your end of the network. But one of the things that they've asked the Department of Justice to consider is making these classes post-certified and also making all of your trainers have to be DOJ certified and approved for a specific locale. But
yeah, which the problem with post-certification is okay, so unless they change the rules, post courses can only be taught at academies or community colleges that have academies. So that will take pretty much any and all civilian instructors for the concealed carry permit out of the deal. They'll all have to be taught either by a police department, by a sheriff's department, or at a police academy. There's not going to be taught anywhere else, which is going to limit the course availability tremendously, and it's going to create a larger bottleneck and slow down the process, all of which is a violation of our constitutional rights. A right delayed is a right denied, and I did not make that up. It's been said in court decisions. So that's not going to fly either. None of this, I mean, do you think you looked at the list. Right. Is there anything in that list that's actually has a chance of remaining after we drag it through court?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things and I think there are things that all of us would agree to. Like, I don't think somebody should carry their firearm when they're a drug addict and an alcoholic simultaneously. Like, that's just what I would call more common sense. But buried in with all this stuff, you have to think about, they are trying to do three things, in my opinion. One, make it so onerous for a new person that they just will say, forget it, I just don't want to do it. And we've seen that with a whole host of new laws passed this year that have impacted hunters, have impacted youth shooting sports, made it right now it's almost impossible for a kid who has worked for 6-7 years to go to college on a scholarship, because none of the colleges will come here to California anymore and talk to California shooting students because of a previous bill signed a week ago by the governor called AB 2571. We've got a situation right now with 918 where people may just say, forget it, you know what, I don't want to do it. With the passage of what looks like is going to be Assembly Bill 1227, raising the price on ammunition and firearms, if you're a new person going to take up the shooting sports, whether it's to put food on your table or just to be a competitive shooter, that's going to price a lot of people out of the game, Joel, and make them not want to do it. So all of these things in concert are designed to keep any new person from becoming part of our community. Then to make it so onerous for those of us who are in it to say it's just not worth it anymore, to try to break us. And then finally is for those few, those brave band of brothers who decide to hold together, they want to crush St. Crispin's Day by just saying, you know what? Now it's out in the open and we're coming after you, and what are you going to do about it? And that's where the danger point, because they're hoping somebody's going to go off the deep end so they can use that as the final blow. So patience, being calm, being cool and collected, and knowing we have already won this. We just have to go through a process and push back and do it through the courts, do it through the legislature, and get people removed through the power of the vote. Those are all things that we are equipped to do. Well, we just have to persevere and have the resilience to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like your grandpa just bought you a brand new truck or brand new car you've been wanting for a long, long time. He got all the goodies on it that you want. It's everything that you want, everything that you went down to buy and you couldn't afford it. The problem is you're in California and it's in Wisconsin. And so now you either have to have it shipped out here, or you got to get the time off from work and you got to fly out there to Wisconsin, drive the thing back. It's a nuisance to go get, but it's already yours. That's what's happened here. We've been given by the Supreme Court, we've been given the victory. Now, just like the car sitting in Wisconsin, we have to go through the expense and the time of going to get it. It's there, it's ours. Now we got to go get it. So I don't want you to leave this video thinking that we've lost, because we haven't. We've already won this, as Rick said. The victory's already ours. All we have to do is go get it. But it costs money and it takes time and it takes work. And there's a lot of folks doing the work for you and spending the time. And what we're asking you to do is be patient along the way. Now, at the same time, shameless plug for CRPA. Just in case you're wondering who pays for all these lawsuits, that would be the California Rifle and Pistol Association. So if you have any ability, if you're not a member, shame on you. Right now, go to the link in the description and click on it and join, please. If you can possibly contribute beyond that and contribute to the court effort, then please do that as well, because they're going to burn just about every dollar they've got probably on these court cases, because there's going to be a lot of them. And some of these bills, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, some of these bills are going to take multiple court cases, because you have to go after this piece of the bill here and that piece of the bill there. You can't go after the whole bill, right?
At least a half a dozen separate cases on just this one bill. And I want to make sure people know Gun Owners of California is hand in hand, side by side, raising money to help fight these as well. And so if you're a member of them, support them. And you know what? Support us by literally showing up at some of these chapter meetings. If you don't have one in your area, reach out to us. We'll help you form one, because we need to get the voice of the people heard locally.
Now, how many chapters have you got now?
Close to 40.
Wow, really? Okay, so if you're in an area where there may be a chapter near you, and so how can they find out if there's a chapter near them they can go be part of?
Just call our office and reach out to us at contact@crpa.org, and we'll help them find a chapter or help create one. Yeah,
there you go. If you want to start your own, you can do that, particularly if you're in an area where there isn't one. That would be a really good thing. We've got to get the ball. So that's the ground game, right? That's the ground game.
I want to say one other thing, too.
Go ahead.
If you're out of state watching, because I know a lot of people watch this program from out of state, I want you to realize some of the bills that we have faced, like the one that went after the kids, 2571, we have literally had people from Virginia, Texas, Maine, and several other states call us, because those same bills are now being carried by the Giffords groups and the Brady groups to their areas. And so they're working in concert with CRPA. If you live in another state, form a CRPA chapter. We've got a couple that are starting to form up in other states. Get together with a group of people, and we will give you the playbook that they're launching here that's coming to your neighborhood, so you can be prepared to fight against it.
And there you go. So again, that gets back to, if you think about this as being fought on many levels, right? You have what Rick does. Rick and Sam Paredes pretty much live at the capital of the state, and they're lobbyists. That's what they do. They're up there lobbying the legislature and battling with the legislature all the time. That is not an enviable job. And I'm very grateful they do it. It would drive me it would drive me to drink, literally. So I'm glad I don't have to do it. Now, the lawyer's job, their job is to drag these things through court when the lobbyists have not been successful in keeping them from becoming law. And in California, keeping them from becoming law is very, very difficult. But the nice thing about Rick and Sam is they understand how the game is played. Sometimes rules and little nuance is necessary to kill something, and they actually kill a lot of these bills. And you don't probably aren't aware of that, but they do. The ones that become law then have to go to court. That's where Chuck Michelle and his team over at Michelle and Associates take off and do that. So that's two parts of it. But there's the ground game we have to be aware of. And if we don't have the ground game, everything else doesn't matter, because the ground game, which are the CRPA chapters, people like you who are on the ground, that's extremely important, because that's what's going to involve people in the shooting sports, bring new people into firearms ownership and the Second Amendment and into our culture, and get people voting. So your part, if you're watching this and you're not working as an attorney doing this, or you're part of the ground game, and that's extraordinarily important. So I do urge you to understand that it's like having three different teams working toward the same goal. No one team is more important than the other, but two find it very difficult to do without the third. And that's why Rick keeps talking about people, okay, so they're duck hunters, they don't want a concealed carry permit, so they don't care about this. That's destructive to the ground game. You're just shooting the rest of us in the foot because you're not part of the ground game. So you need to get to be part of the ground game, and the best way to do that is be a member of CRPA, help out with the chapters, be a member of Gun Owners of California, help out with whatever they're doing, because they're doing a lot. And those two organizations are like this. Okay, so that's what's happening in California, in case you're wondering. If you're going to join organizations, I just listed them for you. People ask me all the time, which one should I join? Okay, I'll answer the question again for the 475,000th time, probably. I don't know. Gun Owners of California, California Rifle and Pistol Association. If you don't join anything else, but you join those and support those, you're accomplishing a lot. And then get involved, please, and be part of the ground game. Okay, I'm part of the ground game, but my job is to keep you informed. That's what I'm doing. Okay, so that's
very appreciative.
That's my little piece of the puzzle here. I'm not an attorney and I'm not a lobbyist, so otherwise I'd be going. So we can't have that. All right, last word, Rick. It's all you. Go.
Just want to say thank you to all of you, and keep the faith. And remember, as always, what we say at CRPA: be safe, shoot straight, and fight back for your rights.
Everybody has to have a cool slogan. Now I need one. Thank you very much, Rick. Have a great day. Now get back to work and go back and fight this.
Yes, sir.
I'll see you later.
Okay.
All righty. So there you are, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, as they said with the old Jaws movie. Look, here's my suggestion. Don't let this keep you from applying for a concealed carry permit in California. If you wish to do so, apply, because as we've said in the video, the battle is already won. We just have to go get it, and then this stuff is going to go away. But in the meantime, we're going to have to fight it as best we can, tooth and nail, in the same way they're fighting us. That's the way it works. So there you go. Once again, please do support Gun Owners of California, support CRPA, and if you are concerned that any of these videos might disappear, check us out on those locations. And if you would like, you can always support me by going to GunGuyTVCrew.com. The link is in the description. Have a great week. Thank you very much for all of your support, and wherever you go, whatever you do, stay safe.